Good evening, everyone. This is the Spongy Bible Brain Devotion. That's my title for it. My name is Patrick Malone, and this is Beach Church in Virginia Beach, providing a daily evening Bible devotion as we read through the scriptures every year from one end to the other. Today is May 26, 2026, and we're looking at the last four chapters of the book of Esther in the Old Testament, Esther 7 through 10. Some general notes on the book that's very interesting. It's one of only two books in the Bible named after a woman. It's one of only three books in the Bible not mentioned in the New Testament. That's kind of interesting. The author is unknown, but whoever wrote the book had an intimate knowledge of both Jewish and Persian customs with a very strong sense of Jewish nationalism. Now, you may remember as we've gone through Kings and Chronicles and Ezra and Nehemiah that there were three groups of returning Jews to the land of Israel that was noted in the books of Ezra and Nehemiah. And so this book of Esther takes place in that same time period, probably between the arrival of one group before another one came. The wider historic context is the Persian king Xerxes. That's the Greek name for this. Easier to pronounce. This is the same guy who armored Spartans at the pass of Thermopylae, but then lost the war or their attempt to conquer Greece in the sea battle of Salamis, where 300 Greek ships defeated 700 Persian ships, and which is also probably the reason why Xerxes was later assassinated. Now, the biblical context here is important, and it helps in our understanding of the intent and meaning of the book. So Esther and Exodus both chronicle how vigorously foreign powers tried to eliminate the Jewish race and how God sovereignly preserved his people in accordance with his covenant with Abraham. And the result here that we read about in these final chapters of Esther is the establishment of a new annual festival called Purim, and it celebrates the survival of the nation of Israel. Now, I do depend a lot upon the commentary notes in my Bible, but I rarely read word for word from it, but I'm going to do that today because this is a really good way to help us understand what the book of Esther is about and how to remember it, I think, too. So this is what it says. Esther can be compared to a chess game. So your mnemonic device going forward for the book of Esther is picturing in your mind Queen Esther and King Xerxes hovering over a chessboard playing chess, okay? But this is a chess game, and it's between God and Satan. They're the invisible players. And they move real kings and queens and nobles around the board. So when Satan puts Haman into place, it is as if he says, check to God. And then God positions Esther and Mordecai in order to put Satan into checkmate. Ever since the fall of man in Genesis 3, Satan has attempted to spiritually sever God's relationship with his human creation and disrupt God's covenant promises with Israel. Think back to 2 Chronicles, where there was one heir still in the line of David, the kingship of David. You remember Joash, they had to hide him for a few years as a little boy, and yet God saved that line from being completely cut off. Think about Herod slaughtering infants in Bethlehem, thinking that the Messiah was one of those infants. Think about Satan tempting Christ to denounce God and worship him instead. Or think about Satan tempting Peter to block Jesus from going to Jerusalem, where Jesus says, "Get behind me, Satan." Or Satan obviously entering into Judas to betray Jesus. While God is not mentioned in Esther, he is everywhere apparent as the one who opposed and foiled Satan's diabolic schemes by his providential intervention. Remember, it says in Psalm 121, verse 4, "Behold, he who keeps Israel neither slumbers nor sleeps. So the quick outline is this. Chapter 7 is where Haman is hanged on the gallows he intended for Mordecai. So this is where Mordecai and Esther foil Haman's plot to not only kill Mordecai, but to kill every Jew in the Persian Empire. Um, and then in chapter 8, Esther actually thwarts all of that. She reverses that. Remember, the king kept saying, "What else can I do for you? What else do you want?" And Esther asks for the reversal of everything that Haman was trying to do. So in chapter 8, Esther literally saves the Jews in the Persian Empire. And then in chapter 9, the tables are turned. The Jews are given the authority to destroy their tormentors, and they do. And out of that comes the Feast of Purim, celebrating the nation's survival. And then chapter 10, which is very brief with just 3 verses, it relates how Mordecai is given a very high position in the king's court. It's kind of like Joseph with Pharaoh. My takeaway is simple and brief, and it has to do with anti-Semitism and the more recent persecution of Christians. Anti-Semitism is a sad saga of human history. It's been going on ever since God called Abraham and later established the nation of Israel. The Holocaust that murdered 6 million Jews at the hands of the Nazi Germany is a testament to the enduring attempts by Satan to destroy God's people. Sadly, this is really sad. The horrible history of anti-Semitism was carried out mainly by severely misguided or supposed Christians from the 3rd to the 20th century. The atrocities by Christians against Jews is frankly embarrassing and immensely sad. Happily today, Christians, this is post-World War II, and especially the mid to late 50s, have realized the false interpretation of the Bible that suggests that the Jews killed Jesus and therefore deserve punishment. Listen, replace Jewish leaders and Roman leaders in those gospel accounts with any people group. Make it the Irish and the Polish, or make it people who are black and people who are yellow. It doesn't matter. What is important is that in those circumstances, Satan would have maneuvered on the chessboard any human beings to hate and kill Jesus. It is sin's ultimate destination to work against God. It has nothing to do with our ethnicity or skin color or anything else. Sadly, the banner of Jew hating and now Christian persecution has been taken up by Islam, which that really hasn't changed for them across the centuries. But they now are in kind of an unholy marriage with communism today. And the chant from the river to the sea has the intention of just destroying Israel and killing all the Jews. And I would add Christians today. And I think that's the takeaway for me. It's a warning for Christians to realize that the same evil origin for anti-Semitism, and that is Satan, by the way, that same power is equally intent on destroying Christians as well as Jews. The powers and principalities that seek to destroy Western civilization today, they know the core values of that civilization are rooted in Judeo-Christian ethics and morality. So realize you and I are involved in spiritual warfare at all times. Even in times of relative or seeming peace and calm, we need to put on the full armor of God, because Satan never sleeps. He's prowling around looking to destroy us, right? And surely the news today is screaming at us to be ready to give an account of our faith in the face of persecution. However, this earthly human level chess match plays out between Western civilization and the forces of Islam and communism, remember Esther and its shining example of God keeping promises to protect his people in times of need. But I would also add, importantly, that Esther and Mordecai and the likes of Zerubbabel and Ezra and Nehemiah, and also the prophets Haggai and Zechariah from that time period, They all responded to God's call to do something about it and not to be posthumously labeled with a crowd of the good people who stood by and did nothing while their nation or their world or their society or civilization was going to hell in a handbasket. Pray. Ask God for your next assignment in the spiritual battles of the day, and then do it. I recently texted my oldest daughter in Salt Lake City and asked about her plans to remember those who had given their last full measure of devotion for our nation relative to Memorial Day. And that phrase comes from Abraham Lincoln's Gettysburg Address. Her reply was to live her life as best she can. We Christians should do at least that. But pray about the possibility of needing to do more in times of need. For just as Mordecai said to Esther, and who knows but that you have come to your royal position for such a time as this, we too may be called to put ourselves out there for just such a time as this. All right, thank you. That's it for today. God bless.